course about it, they have enough food. He, Count Olaf, scream and run away. One of the most important lessons in all of literature. So, I'm now going to read from a brief passage in this work from this stolen copy. Count Olaf forced the children to do something so terrible that I scarcely can stand to say it, in which Count Olaf forces the children to work in the kitchen. I know it is terrible! I know perhaps you are forced to help cook something in the kitchen, or perhaps you have had to clean something up. Or perhaps you have been forced to walk into the kitchen and greet a guest who's there, that you know how terrible life could be. But nevertheless, to teach the second of the three more lessons, I will read this passage. And while I read, the rest of you will be doing something called eat. What? Eat? Anyone? The black fast floors. Floors like here. Eat means eurythmic auditory participation. Duh. I will have to explain that as I go along. For most of the afternoon, Violet, Faust, and Sunny cooked the food and exercise according to the recipe. Violet roasted the garlic and washed and chopped the anchovies. Faust peeled the tomatoes and pitted the olives. And Sunny banged on a pot with a wooden spoon, singing a rather repetitive song.
We can't hear you.
Sorry?
We cannot hear you up here.
Should I speak into a microphone?
Yes.
Or are you just bragging that you can't hear me? Violet roasted the garlic and washed and chopped the anchovies. Klaus peeled the tomatoes and pitted the olives. And Sunny banged on a pot with a wooden spoon, singing a rather repetitive song she had written herself. And this was the first opportunity for EAP. And all it is that I asked for volunteers from the audience. It is a volunteer position. You will not be paid. Your armpit, my good woman. Volunteers from the audience to make the appropriate sound effects. If you are mute and you have no limbs, you cannot volunteer. Yes, madam, I need you to make a noise that sounds like a baby banging on a pot with a wooden spoon, singing a rather repetitive song she's written herself. Go. A little louder. They can't hear you in the back. Perhaps you can try. Excellent. It's like I'm there. And Sunny banged on a pot with a wooden spoon, singing a rather repetitive song she'd written herself. The power of the imagination. And all three of the children felt less miserable than they had since their arrival at Count Olaf's. The smell of cooking food is often a calming one, and the kitchen grew cozy as the sauce simmered, a culinary term which means cooked over low heat. The three orphans spoke of pleasant memories of their parents and about Justice Strauss, for they agreed with the wonderful neighbor, and in whose library they planned to spend a great deal of time. As they talked, they mixed and tasted the chocolate pudding. Just as they were placing the pudding in the refrigerator to cool, Violet, Klaus, and Sunny heard a loud booming sound. And now I need someone who can make a loud booming sound. Yeah. Eek. Just as they were placing the pudding in the refrigerator to cool, Violet, Klaus, and Sunny heard a loud booming sound as the front door was flung open, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you who was home. Orphans! Count Olaf called out in his scratchy voice. Where are you, orphans? In the kitchen, Count Olaf, Klaus called. We're just finishing dinner. You'd better be, Count Olaf said, and strode into the kitchen. He gazed at all three Baudelaire children with his shiny, shiny eyes. My troop is right behind me, and they're very hungry. Where is the roast beef? We didn't make roast beef, Violet said. We made puttanesca sauce. What? Count Olaf asked. No roast beef? You didn't tell us you wanted roast beef, Klaus said. Count Olaf slid toward the children so that he looked even taller than he was. His eyes grew even brighter, and his one eyebrow raised in anger. In agreeing to adopt you, he said, I have become your father. And as your father, I am not someone to be trifled with. I demand that you serve roast beef to myself and to my guests. We don't have any, Violet cried. We made puttanesca sauce. No, no, no! Sunny shouted. Count Olaf looked down at Sunny, who had spoken so suddenly. With an inhuman roar, and now I need someone who can make an inhuman roar. Yes, madam, waving your hand as if you were drowning. Count Olaf looked down at Sunny, who had spoken so suddenly. With an inhuman roar. Wasn't that chilling? He picked her up in one scraggly hand and raised her so she was staring at him in the eye. Needless to say, Sunny was very frightened and began crying immediately, too scared to even try and fight the hand that held her. Put her down immediately, you beast! Klaus shouted. He jumped up, trying to rescue Sunny from the grasp of the Count, but he was holding her too high to reach. Count Olaf looked down at Klaus and smiled a terrible, toothy grin, raising the wailing Sunny up even higher in the air. He seemed about to drop her to the floor when there was a large burst of laughter. And now, I'm going to draw a line down this beautiful synagogue. It's not a real line, it's an imaginary line. And if you are on this side of this line, I would like you to make a loud burst of laughter. That was okay, but you sounded like a group of predominantly young people being entertained by a genius children's author, and really you should sound more like a group of drunk and unruly adults coming home from a party. So try again. Isn't it interesting that you couldn't do an inhuman roar, and yet this you can do as well? He seemed about to drop her to the floor when there was a large burst of laughter in the next room. Olaf! Where's Olaf? Voices called out. Count Olaf paused, still holding the wailing Sunny up in the air, as members of his theater troupe walked into the kitchen. Soon they were crowding the room, an assortment of strange-looking characters of all shapes and sizes. There was a bald man with a very long nose, dressed in a long black robe. There were two women who had bright white powder all over their faces, making them look like ghosts. There was a man, behind the women was a man with very long and skinny arms, at the end of which were two hooks instead of hands. There was a person who was extremely fat, and who looked like neither a man nor a woman. And behind this person, standing in the doorway, were an assortment of people the children could not see, but who promised to be just as frightening. "Here you are, Olaf," said one of the white-faced women. "What in the world are you doing?" "I'm just disciplining these orcs," Count Olaf said.